So, guys, now that President Ramaphosa has announced his cabinet, some political parties and organizations are actually accusing him of having a bloated cabinet. So, what are your thoughts on this, man? Do you think that this is a bloated cabinet, or do you think that President Ramaphosa could have done better in terms of making sure that we do not have a bloated cabinet, taking into consideration the fact that this is not just a coalition, this is the government of national unity that consists of 10 political parties? So how was Ramaphosa actually supposed to draw up his cabinet? Guys, please tell me, what are your thoughts? Do you think this is a bloated cabinet, or do you think that Ramaphosa could have done better?
ActionSA has rejected the new cabinet, labeling it a dodgy billion-rand cabinet. The party says it's a bad impression, it creates a bad impression, and any intention, and doesn't have intentions of bringing meaningful reform to politics. ActionSA Eastern Cape Provincial Leader Athol Trollip joins us now to talk more. Athol, good morning to you and welcome. Your statement of response to the announcement reads, contrary to past commitments by both the President and the DA, the appointment of 32 ministers and 43 deputy ministers shows that when they stand to benefit, their principles soon fall by the wayside. You're essentially saying they betrayed themselves and their voter base, sellouts really. Explain that position to our viewers.
Good morning, Iman. Thanks very much. Well, look, obviously, we're really disappointed that we have such a bloated cabinet. It's clearly all about appeasement. The president said that at the start of his announcement last night. So there are two issues here, really. First of all, we at last have a cabinet, so now government can get to work, which we're happy about. The second issue is that we can't afford a cabinet that size. And essentially, what we've seen is that Cyril Ramaphosa has prepared to bloat his cabinet to appease all the parties of the multi-party coalition that have come together to form a government.
But is it fair to actually criticize Ramaphosa for trying to appease the members of these political parties that are actually helping the ANC to govern the country? Or is it fair to actually criticize Ramaphosa for appeasing? Is it fair? Because if you were Ramaphosa right now, guys, I'm trying to put myself in the position of the president. I'm trying to put myself in the position of the president. You have 9 political parties that have come to join the government of national unity. You are about to draw up a cabinet. How do you make sure that these political parties actually stay with the government of national unity? How do you make sure that these people will be loyal to this project of the government of national unity if you are not going to appease them in the cabinet? Because right now, I think it's starting to sound a bit unfair to say that Ramaphosa is focusing on appeasing. It's almost as if the ANC has won the elections, but they are just giving away these ministries. They are just giving away these ministries to appease some people. But that is not the situation. The ANC did not win the elections. The ANC got 40%. The ANC desperately needed these political parties that came to join the government of national unity. So it's quite fair for the ANC to actually appease these people that have literally helped them to govern the country. I don't know if the method that were used by the president are correct or what, but I think appeasing these political parties, it was quite fair. It was quite fair.
And he doesn't trust any one of those partners to run a department on their own. So you've seen that he has put in sometimes 2 deputy ministers in watchdog capacity. And we believe that's just completely profligate, and we can't afford that. And unfortunately, in life, when you make choices like that around appeasing people, it's never the best policy to get things done. But there is always an opportunity cost to making that kind of appeasement. And
but if Ramaphosa does not appease these people, do you understand that it's going to render ANC vulnerable? And Ramaphosa does not want that.
Opportunity cost is that cabinet is going to cost billions of rands to run at the cost of running departments effectively and getting the job done in South Africa.
And guys, again, man, this is the reason why I said maybe ActionSA should have joined the government of national unity. Because having these conversations on television is not as meaningful as having these conversations with the president. Because if ActionSA was part of the government of national unity, they would have been able to actually raise up these issues with the president and say, President, we know that you are trying to draw up your cabinet, but please make sure that you do not have a bloated cabinet, because we cannot afford to have such a bloated cabinet. This is the reason why I actually commend the political parties that have joined the government of national unity, because you can make a meaningful impact when you are inside. But now that you are outside, you are saying all of these things. It doesn't matter at this point. It doesn't matter at this point, but who knows, maybe this is a conversation that Ramaphosa needed before he finalized his cabinet. Maybe he actually needed people like you to tell him that, man, no one is actually talking about money. All of these people that you have invited here, they are not talking about money and how we are going to afford this cabinet. Maybe this conversation could have actually changed Ramaphosa's mind. We don't know. And this is the reason why I say maybe ActionSA man should have been inside. You should have been inside. The door is still open. The door is still open. You could have been inside.
And the opportunity cost would also then, play itself out in how effective they are able to be. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's going to be very difficult. As I described the composition of this cabinet, wherever there's a non-ANC minister, there are a couple of ANC watchdog deputy ministers. And I think that's going to make it very difficult. It's going to make it cumbersome. And I think the decision-making process is going to be very cumbersome in that cabinet. And I think it's going to be a government that's going to be monolithic. It's going to be very slow to react. And unfortunately, that's just the antithesis of what South Africa needs. South Africa needs a lean, live government that is able to respond quickly and efficiently and effectively. And I think that this bloated cabinet is not going to be able to do that. But time will tell. We have chosen to be in the opposition benches. We are right in the middle between this multi-party coalition government and the so-called progressive caucus, which actually is a regressive caucus. So we find ourselves in the middle there. We've committed to being a constructive opposition that will hold the government to account where we have to do that and support the government where we can. So that is the role that we're going to play over the next 5 years, and we'll watch the performance of this cabinet very, very closely.
I guess now this is the matter of looking at the glass half full or half empty. Because when you are talking about the watchdogs, you could say that these watchdogs are going to make things impossible. It's going to be a very slow government because people will be debating about everything. But you could actually look at it the other way, that maybe these watchdogs are actually going to incentivize the ministers to perform. Maybe these watchdogs, maybe this is what the ANC needed all along. Because the ANC have been alone in those ministerial positions. They've been alone in those deputy ministerial positions. But now that you have the members of other political parties, maybe this thing is going to push them to perform better. Maybe this thing is going to push other members of other political parties that are occupying the ministerial positions to actually perform. Because you know that if you don't perform, you have a deputy minister that cannot wait to kick you out. That's why I'm saying maybe this is the matter of looking at the glass half full or half empty. It just depends on how you look at it. It just depends on how you look at it. This is the conversation that people are having on social media. I remember someone saying that the ANC is going to suffer because this whole thing is not going to work. And people said, what if it works? What if it works? Do you understand what that means for opposition parties? If the government of national unity actually works, do you understand what that means for opposition parties? It's over with. It's over with. If government of national unity works, ActionSA, you might find yourself in danger. You might find yourself in danger. So it just depends on how you look at the glass, half full or half empty.
Circle back to the role that you'll play in the opposition in just a moment. Why do you call them the regressive caucus?
Well, progressive, I think whoever named it didn't really understand what progressive means. This so-called progressive caucus is anti the Constitution.
Yes.
They're anti private ownership of land.
Yes.
They have some really regressive ideas. They also, many of them are Marxists and communists. And we've seen what Marxism and communism has done all over the world. So for all intents and purposes, we believe they're more regressive than progressive.
Of course, they are regressive, man. Of course, they are regressive. You have to understand that with EFF and MK Party, these people are going to oppose everything that the government of national unity is trying to do. And ActionSA has already positioned themselves, and they've met with the ANC and told the ANC that we are not going to play that role. We are not going to oppose everything that you guys actually propose. If it makes sense, then we're going to vote with you. If it doesn't make sense, then we're going to oppose it. And this is, again, the reason why ActionSA should have been part of the government of national unity. Because if you understand that the political parties that are in the government of national unity, it doesn't mean that they are going to agree with everything. Sometimes they're going to have debates. Sometimes they're going to have those tough discussions about the matters of policy. You should have been inside, so that when people are trying to propose something that you guys do not understand, you can say, whoa, guys, no. Because in the GNU, they are also going to vote on the matters. They are going to vote on the matters. But if you decide to stay on opposition benches, I don't know how is that going to play with ActionSA, considering that EFF and MK Party, they are going to cloud you as the oppositions. They are going to cloud you as oppositions, because they're going to be there in parliament doing the theatrics, throwing the tantrums and everything. And where will ActionSA be when all of that takes place? And I do agree with you, man. You know those people, man. There is nothing progressive about those people. Absolutely nothing progressive about those people.
Let's talk about, the question of trade-offs or betrayal, essentially. And on the issue of a bloated cabinet, we understand historically where the Democratic Alliance and other parties have stood around editing that cabinet down, making it a much leaner. And against those criticisms of the composition of what is now an extended cabinet, Helen Zille said on our program this morning on the very question that they didn't know how big the cabinet would ultimately be, just the positions that they had agreed to. Do you buy that?
I don't buy that at all, and I'll tell you why. First of all, ActionSA was part of the multi-party charter prior to the election results of the 29th of May. And in that multi-party charter, we agreed, along with the EFF, the IFP, and the DA, amongst others, that we should trim down the cabinet to no more than 18 to 20 positions and have no deputy ministerial positions. Now, if Helen Zille says she didn't know that they were going to be offered deputy ministerial positions, I don't think she's being quite honest in that regard. So from going to saying no deputy ministers to accepting 6 deputy ministers, that's quite a big move. So we believe that many of the parties that are now in this multi-party government, the IFP, the Freedom Front Plus, and the DA, for example, that were multi-party charter members, they've gone against their own commitments of cutting down the size of cabinet, making it more strategic, more light, as I said, and lean. They've gone completely against that. They've all accepted positions now in the cabinet, which has made the cabinet bloated, because Cyril Ramaphosa said himself that he had to accommodate those partners. So they have gone against their requests and their campaigns, in fact, for Cyril Ramaphosa to reduce his cabinet.
We've had an analyst on just...
And to be fair, man, no one actually cares what the political parties campaign on. To be honest, no one cares what the political parties campaign on, or the Freedom Front Plus, IFP, and the DA. They don't care what they said in the multi-party chart. Because the multi-party charter, at the end of the day, they didn't get 50 plus 1%. So the agreement collapsed automatically. Once they realized that this bloc is not going to get 50 plus 1%, everyone had to look out for themselves. Everyone had to look out for themselves. So to expect them to stick by what they said on the multi-party charter or what they said when they were campaigning, like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Once the multi-party charter realized that there is no 50 plus 1 here, everyone had to go out and save their own political party. And you have to look at the way that some of these political parties are actually trying to grow their base nationally. This is the reason why they are sending their people to go out and be the ministers and be the deputy ministers. Because they understand that if we perform well nationally, chances are people are going to vote for us because they know that we have capable leaders that can do the work nationally. This is the reason why when I was doing that video of the EFF, I said that, man, EFF, you guys, I honestly believe that you guys have shot yourself on the foot. Because if you want to prove to your people that you have capable leaders that can perform on a national level, you should have taken this opportunity to join the government of national unity. The same thing with ActionSA. If you believe that your people are capable, you should have taken the chance. Maybe you could have gotten a minister or two. Then we could actually monitor how ActionSA would perform nationally. You know what I love about this whole government of national unity? It's like, it's different from what we were used to under the ANC. Now we can say that if the DA does not perform on basic education, we are not going to say, nah, it's just ANC, you know how ANC is. No, people will say that the DA's minister is failing to perform. If Shabisa fails to perform as the minister of Govt, people are not going to say, are not just going to dismiss it as another ANC failure. People will say that the IFP minister, Shabisa, is failing to perform. This is why it was so important for political parties to join the government of national unity. Because if you perform, the people will vote for you. If you, as a political party, you show the people that we have capable leaders in this political party, chances are the people will vote for you in the upcoming elections. This is the reason why it is so important for all of those people that have joined the government of national unity to put out their best people, because everyone is watching. Unlike before, if we say a certain portfolio is not performing, people will go back and search, oh, this portfolio belongs to the DA. It means that you, DA, you are incompetent here in the Minister of Home Affairs. This is why it was important for you guys to join the GNU.
Just before you came on, Athol, to say that we have to be appreciative of the context in which South Africa finds itself. There had to be trade-offs made. We find ourselves in a very different democratic and political paradigm in South Africa. And this is an invidious job the president would have had in any case, with the numbers that the ANC now produced after this last election, to come up with not only a collaborative government, a government, purely of national unity, but also to be able to do all of the appeasement that it takes to get to a place where we can have a cabinet that functions at all. Do you have any appreciation for perhaps what might have been a very, very difficult task in managing everyone's expectations and demands?
Man, absolutely. There's no doubt that this kind of cabinet has been put together under tremendous pressure. It's a whole new paradigm in South African politics, so we do have appreciation for that. However, having said that, we really don't think it's prudent to retread ministers like Bladen Zamandi and Angie Motshekga, ministers that have not performed well in their previous departments for more than a decade. To retread them and put them in other departments, we think is a parlous mistake. Secondly, for having up to 2 deputy ministers, there's absolutely no need for that, even though this is an appeasement cabinet. We believe that Cyril Ramaphosa should have taken a much stronger position and done away with deputy minister posts, and certainly not necessary to have 2 in any department. So we do think that it is profligate, and he could have done much better under the circumstances, and we appreciate that they were difficult. but I think he could have done much, much better.
You know, guys, the other thing is that these political parties that are criticizing President Ramaphosa for having a bloated cabinet, one of the things that I don't understand with them is that, and the organizations, one of the things that I don't understand is that all of them, they are saying that President Ramaphosa could have done better, but they are not exactly telling us how President Ramaphosa could have done better. They are just criticizing the president without actually saying that this is what the president should have done. Because right now, when you listen to Athol Trollip, he acknowledges that the ANC had their work cut out for them. He appreciates that the president was under a lot of pressure. He appreciates that the ANC has formed the government of national unity, meaning that the president had to appease the partners of the government of national unity. But at the same time, you are criticizing the president for having a bloated cabinet. So I'm not going to take your right away of criticizing the president for having a bloated cabinet. But I am going to expect you to tell us how the president should have went around this thing. Because when you are going to criticize the president for having a bloated cabinet without telling South Africans what the president should have done, it's a futile exercise. It's a futile exercise. Because no one has actually said that to appease the 10 political parties, president, this is what you should have done. This is what you should have done. So this is the only problem that I have with the people that are criticizing Ramaphosa for having a bloated cabinet. That it's fine, man. Everyone, we can criticize having 77 people in the cabinet. Like, this is not something that people actually expected. But if you were in Ramaphosa's shoes, what would you have done differently? This is something that I'm struggling to hear from the people that are criticizing President Ramaphosa for having a bloated cabinet. If you were in his shoes, what is it that you would have done? Because saying that the president should have taken a stronger position, the ANC was not strong. The ANC is a 40%. Basically, the ANC lost the elections. They lost the elections. So president couldn't just wake up in the morning and saying that we are taking a stronger position, because the ANC was not strong to start with. So what is it that the president could have done? What is it that the president could have done to avoid having a bloated cabinet? This is what I'm struggling to hear from the people that are criticizing the president.
Here's the thing, Athol, finally, South Africans, especially those who live in communities where there isn't service delivery, where things are breaking, kids can't go to school, they may not have documents, a number of different things that translate to a really miserable lived experience, and not even mentioning things like deep malnourishment in your province, for example, where I think 1 in 4, the national average is around 1 in 4, but in Eastern Cape, it's quite profound, the levels of malnourishment. People just want the business of governance and government to get underway and to work in their interests. You don't believe, though, that in the composition that we do have, that there will be meaningful political reform which could translate into the efficacy of service delivery on the ground. Why not?
Well, we sincerely hope that it will. We are a bit dubious. And, you used the Eastern Cape as an example. It is a tragic example of maladministration faced with malnutrition and many other socio-economic challenges. But the people of the Eastern Cape still voted for the ANC. So, it's not the composition of the cabinet, it's not the composition of the government that determines how effectively a government works. It's how the leadership of that government drives governance. And we believe that Cyril Ramaphosa has proven in his last term that he was not capable of dealing with those very tragic issues that you now highlighted. And the fact that the people of the Eastern Cape and Limpopo that have the worst socioeconomic indexes are still voting for the ANC is an indication that, it's not the government, it's the leadership of the government.
So what happens next? You don't, you talked about the need in your statement following the announcement, the need to crank up the volume of your opposition. There's a certain polarity that's going to be manifest in Parliament going forward, and there'll be minority opposition groups and sort of opposition blocks in Parliament as well. Where do you sit, and how can you make an impact where you are?
Well, as I said, Iman, we sit right in the middle of the multi-party government and the inverted commas progressive stroke regressive caucus of the MK and the EFF. Now, the multi-party government takes up nearly 20% of the seats in Parliament. So that leaves very little space for real opposition, constructive opposition. We don't see that MK and EFF are going to be constructive in their opposition.
No,
we've seen how the EFF operated in the last 10 years. It's going to be interesting to see how MK operates now.
Yeah.
But we believe that we have the capacity to be the ballast and in the middle and to hold government to account where we have to and to support them where we can. And that's the role that we've defined for ourselves.
Athol Chollop, Eastern Cape Provincial Leader, thank you very much for talking to us.
So, guys, what are your thoughts, man? What are your thoughts? If you believe that this is a bloated cabinet from Ramaphosa, what do you think the president should have done to appease 10 political parties in the government of national unity? Me, I'm not going to be hard on Ramaphosa this time around, guys. I don't want to lie. I'm not going to be hard on Ramaphosa, especially when it comes to this matter of the government of national unity. Maybe it's because I understand that if the government of national unity fails, chances are the regressive left, the radical left, they are going to rise. And we cannot afford that. As a country, we cannot afford MK Party and the EFF to rise. This is the reason why I have not been hard on Ramaphosa lately, because I understand that maybe this is one chance for us to actually save our country. Maybe this is one chance for us to save our country. Because this whole government of national unity thing, if it fails, then the EFF and MK Party, they're going to have a lot of support. And this country will officially go to the dogs. So that's why I'm choosing to try to be reasonable with everything that the president is trying to do right now. I'm trying to be reasonable. I'm trying not to find ways to actually criticize what the president is trying to achieve. I'm trying to be reasonable, because I understand that, guys, right now we are skating on thin ice. As the people of this country, we are skating on thin ice. Chances are the political landscape in this country can turn 180, and the radical left will turn this country into something that we have never imagined. The policies that those people are proposing, they are going to destroy this country. You don't have to be a genius to actually understand that the policies that those people are proposing are going to destroy the country. So it's in our best interest to make sure that what we have right now actually works. Because if it doesn't work, only God knows what's going to happen with this country. I'll leave it there. Guys, please tell me what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to hit that like button, and the most important part is subscribe. My name is Thomas Mabaso. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.